I'm gonna use my rib for a little smoothing, and I'm gonna use a paddle because I love paddles and they work really well. Just gentle, gentle on that connection point. Use my paddle to paddle that seam together because I want that to look perfectly blended, like there was never any evidence of a connection there. It's always been magically just a tube of clay. Paddle, paddle, paddle. Now you can see it's going to stretch the clay a little at that point, so usually we'll push it back down to keep those edges nice and tidy. Okay, now I have an interior seam that I have to also blend together so that it becomes a permanent connection. Okay, so I'm going to turn it like that. I'm going to support it from the outside. And I'm going to do the same thing again, where I'm going to blend that into a totally seamless connection. Okay, so support the outside. Okay, so I'm putting my hand on the outside and blending that connection across. So that it's going to stay together. And I'm going to keep blending that until it looks really smooth. So I'm going to put my hand in there. I'm going to get a rib. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to smooth that. And this is a time to be picky and precise and make sure that you have good craftsmanship. We're going to be gentle and careful with all of our tools and our forms. Okay, and I'm going to keep going with that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the entire walls of what I'm making are the same thickness and also the same height. So one of the things I can do once everything is carefully smoothed is I can go in with my paddle and just make sure I'm leveling. Okay, and I also want to think about mouthfeel, right? I like my mugs not to have a really hard, sharp corner, and so I can go around with my fingers and start softening the sharpness of that corner so that my mug's going to have a nice edge to drink from. Okay, you want to get everything smooth. Now, we need to make a bottom for our mug. So how big do we make it? We have the easiest solution for that in the world, which is we just put our mug on top of our slab and trace around it. Okay, so here's the piece I saved. Okay, and I'm going to smooth it real quick with a clean rib. Smooth. Making sure to stop periodically and wipe the clay off of it. I'm going to do that on both sides. Now, it's important to make sure that the bottom of all of your pieces are really clean. We don't ever want to have any wads, any bits, any stuff on there that's going to make it look messy. The only thing we want on the bottom of our stuff is our little signature stamp, our artist chop that we're going to put on it. So I have my clay ready to go. So all I'm going to do is set it on top of here, and I'm going to cut around the outside. I'm going to move all my tools because I'm just going to turn my whole piece of canvas. Okay, so clean knife. I'm just going to put my knife in here, and all I need to do is rotate. If you have a piece of canvas board that you can switch to, this is a good time to do that. And so I'm going to come around and cut around the outside edge. Any clay I cut off goes straight into my bag so it stays well hydrated. I don't want to have to waste any time rehydrating clay because I don't like to do that. Okay. now I'm going to have my nice base, and it looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to take this off. Okay, I'm going to set this aside, and then I'm going to, big surprise, slip and score some more. Okay, so we don't want our mug to have the bottom fall off more in the middle of drinking our super amazing hot chocolate or coffee, or putting our ramen in there, whatever you're gonna put in your mug. And this is a big boy, so I could do a whole thing of ramen in here, or whatever I feel like. So you can see my scoring is deep and aggressive and cross-hatched. Okay, although I'm making sure not to mangle my clay. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to score the bottom of my cylinder. So we're going to go all in one direction. Then we're going to go in another direction. Okay, so you get that going. Now we're going to make sure that it's adequately scored. So anytime we're slipping and scoring, we're thinking about like how strong, how deep are the connections are going to be that I'm making, so that I can make sure that it's going to stay together. I'm going to get some slip. And as always, I just use my fingers, and I'm going to put my slip on here and connect it. Slip, slip, slip. Wipe off my finger, clean it off on a sponge so that I'm not messy. If your hands are messy, your work is going to be messy. So you always want to make sure that you are being careful about that. Okay, so I have got my piece rested on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start connecting those with a little paddling action, so that I'm starting to merge the clay. And I'm doing it with a paddle because it helps me keep my cylinder consistent while I'm doing it. Okay, so once I have done that, the next thing I'm going to do is my reinforcing piece of clay. And so now I'm thinking about, this is the bottom of a finished piece, so I want to make sure there is never any little bits that are going to get in there. So some of that clay we cut off, now's the time when we can use it. Okay, so I'm going to get in here with little coils of clay, and I'm going to put them in and blend them in at the bottom. So anytime I'm putting them in, I am supporting the outside where I'm pushing. So you can see inside, there's that coil of clay, and I'm going to completely blend that in so that my connection is strong and stable and secure. And that, once we have it all blended together with nice slipping and scoring, is basically how you would make a mug. Now, little tip. This guy right here, this wood knife with this round end, this is our friend that's going to help us blend in the interior, because a lot of times we make mugs and we can't actually reach in and reach the bottom with our hand easily, unless you have little hands or a giant mug. Okay, so I'm going to blend the inside with my fingers before I do the outside edges. And anytime I set this down, I'm going to make sure that my work area is clean anywhere I'm going to set it, because any little clay bits are going to stick. Okay, so I'm going to get my coil all the way around because we want a strong, solid connection that's going to stay together. Okay. So I'm blending it in with my hand. Okay, and I can pick it up and reach in this way to blend, but always supporting it, always keeping it in good shape. Okay, now Once the inside's all blended, then we can come around here and start blending the outside. So I always just hang it on my hand and I blend up. And if it's not sliding well, I have a little sponge so that I can do that. Now, this is a super important connection, of course. And so we're gonna make sure that this is really well blended. And after I've blended it all the way around, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paddle it. And I keep a sponge near me so that I can keep everything smooth and clean while I'm working. And like I said, this mug is huge. Okay, so I'm blending all my connections, making sure I'm keeping everything clean. Okay, now another important thing is once you have a finished piece going on, or a piece that's close to how you want it, you want to make sure the bag you're putting it in is clean and is not full of dried clay bits. If you're putting this into a Ziploc bag that is dirty on the inside, all those dirty bits are going to get trapped in your clay. So I'm blending because I want a strong connection. Okay, once I blend it all the way around and making sure that connection's good, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to paddle. Okay, there's a little piece of fuzz right there. Okay, so I'm making sure my connections are strong. Now, at any point, if your slab's showing any little tiny cracks, that's a warning that it's getting too dry. So now when I paddle, you can see the angle I'm paddling is only touching just the bottom. So I'm not having the paddle make full contact, it's just the bottom edge. Okay, and you can see how quickly that changes it into a really smooth cylinder. But I'm being careful only to have contact on that little bottom connection point. And I'm gentle and soft with my paddle, only doing that bottom edge. See, always a little slice of light that you can see between the paddle and the edge of the cylinder. And I'm going to do this until that connection is pristine. Okay. Okay, one of the things I like to do too is I like to take my finger and I like to make a little indentation in the bottom of my mug because I feel like it sits on the table nicer if you have just a little indentation in it. But you have to make sure all your connections are good and strong before you do this. And you can see the bottom of my cup clean, no little bits, nicely done. Oh, I just nicked it. Okay. Now go back and smooth that out and paddle it so it's perfect. Okay. Craftsmanship is everything. So I'll probably go around 3 times to get that exactly how I want it before it's done. Gives my mug a nice base, makes it sit on the table more nicely. Okay, so I'm going to go around and keep working on that, but that is how I get the cylinder for a nice big mug. Okay, make sure to watch the video on how to attach, how to pull and attach a handle when you are ready for that. Okay, and this is the point where I would go into and slim down the edge of this. So I'm going to squeeze it and go around and rotate, tidy up any little edges that I have. And I usually will pick this up and put it close to my face and feel like, is that the thickness that I want it? And so what this does is this actually slims down just the very top edge of your slab. So I'm just squeezing it between my fingers. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And that's gonna make it nicer to drink from. So this is also a good time to smooth out any little bits, make it beautiful. And that is how you make a cylinder for a slab mug. Okay. And I will do some tidying before the next video. So make sure that you watch the next video for how to pull a handle. We're gonna do a pulled handle so we have a nice, strong connection. And after I pull my handle, I'm going to stamp some textures on my mug so that it has the pattern and design on it that I want. And that's how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit and get a little firmer before I go on to the next step so that the clay is a little stronger and doesn't start flopping. Okay, thanks for checking out how to make a cylinder for a mug.